Hey everyone, this is Pat with Pat Cori Photography. I'm one of the creators of the Rooted to Thrive workshop, and I will be speaking at our upcoming Tuscany one. To say I'm excited would be an understatement, and while we're waiting for April to come, I decided to create a little sneak peek on the topic I will be talking about, using the landscape to tell a couple story so you can get an idea of what to expect. Before meeting my couples for the engagement sessions, I make an effort to learn what they like to do and where they like to spend time. Together, we then pick a location that is important to them, so their images are even more of a representation of who they are as a couple. On the day of their shoot, while I love getting the close-ups and little details, I make sure to take a step back to include the surrounding. I think this is essential. You have to remember that they chose that location because it was important to them. So it's up to you to capture it and include it in their story. The first point I will be covering is finding your perspective. Seeing things in different ways not only pushes your creativity, it also gives your couple variety when they receive their images. As wedding photographers, we don't always work in the most ideal situations, so by practicing to recognize your options, you will learn how to handle better challenges that might come up on a wedding day. If you want to stand out, you need to play around with different points of view. By doing this, you are adding interest in your photographs by giving a perspective that your viewer isn't familiar with. When I first shot in this location, we went here purely because my couple was interested in sunset pictures. As you can see, I got my close-up shots at eye level, and then I got some details, and then I went wide and even wider. It was a very challenging location. The sunset was happening on our left, so we weren't going to get the full effect of colors. And I knew that by just standing on the ground, I wasn't going to include the beautiful mountains in the background. So I decided that I had to shoot from a higher perspective. I got on a rock, and I was loving how the lines of the rocks were meeting the lines of the mountains in the background. I wanted to place them right there in the lines, and the only way to do that was to squat and angle my camera until I had the mountains in my shot and they were at that meeting point. The first shot worked and still told part of their story, but by including some of the view in, it became more impactful visually, and I was able to capture the moment how they were seeing and experiencing it. The second couple had told me that they would have loved to have some of their engagement pictures in their special spot. They told me about a rock where they love to go sometimes at the end of the night to just relax and enjoy the nature around them. When we got there, I realized it was the same location from the previous session. I had noticed this wall at the previous session, and I knew that they were going to love it, to have it as a background. But using the wall also posed a big challenge: the street. As you can see, this beautiful wall full of trees and colors was right on the street. The only way I could eliminate the issue of including the street in my shot was going to be by elevating them this time. With my previous shot, I got on that rock to elevate myself. This time, I had to put them on the same rock to elevate them. But that wasn't enough. I had to lay on the ground until the street was completely hidden. I got some tighter shots, filling up the whole frame, and then I went wider and wider and as low as I could so that I could showcase the proportion of the wall in relation to them. In wedding photography, if you wind up shooting at the same venues, which most of us do, it's important to learn how to search for a new perspective in order to give your clients something unique each time. As you could see by these two examples, how I was able to give each of my couples unique images of the same location and not the same image with just a different couple. Another point I would like to cover is how to make your couple stand out in the environment. One of the biggest things to be on the lookout for when you're shooting wide and your couple is so tiny, engulfed by these big landscapes, is that your couple doesn't blend in. Of course, what they wear is essential too, and knowing ahead of time where you will be shooting so that you can advise them on that is essential. For this image, I wanted to include the forest behind them. So while they were walking towards the woods, a few things stood out to me. First of all, because of their outfits, I had to make sure to position them in a way that they wouldn't blend in with the trees. To do this, it was necessary that I position them in the darker areas. Secondly, if I was going to shoot at eye level, I would have more foreground in my shot. Even by tilting my camera up, I wouldn't be able to get the treetops in the way I was hoping for. And based on the composition I was aiming for, I knew I wanted the shot to have 90% of the trees in the background. So once again, I laid in the ground and tilted my camera up. The first shot was a great one, and I obviously delivered it as well. But I really wanted to showcase the height of the trees, and just by changing my perspective and adjusting my composition, I was able to do so. Here's another example of how to make your couple stand out. As you can see in this shot, there is so much going on. The trees, the houses, the lake, the couple on a boat, but most importantly, the light. When you're shooting a session, there are so many things going on. You're trying to capture the emotions and make sure that you're not forgetting anything. But when your couple wants an image on a boat, on the lake, it's essential to know how to showcase the scenery that they are experiencing. For this shot, I really wanted a cleaner background. So I was communicating with the captain in order to place them properly. Once he got where I wanted them to stop, I had to make sure that I could position them so that the light would hit them and make them stand out. We had to shoot more than once and reposition the boat several times because the boat kept on going in and out of the pocket of light. But once everything lined up, the captain hid by laying down in the boat, and we got the shot. As you can see for this shot, I decided to put them against the darker areas and highlight them by having the light on them. I also loved how the light was bringing out the colors of the trees behind them. But it included less of the lake, and I wanted to give them other options with more of the lake in it. So I then shot the complete opposite. I had them face in the light this time, and I shot the shadow part, which worked to give me the right contrast in between them and the lake. I used the light here too to make my couple stand out. Once again, same location, two complete opposite points of view. There is so much more to talk about when you're shooting wide and using your landscape to tell a story. The importance of composition, how to use your landscape in a silhouette, proper use of leading lines, recommended gear, and so much more. I will talk about all this and more at our workshop, and we will be able to really put these tips and techniques into practice with our live shoots, all the while surrounded by the beautiful hills of Tuscany. Hopefully, you have found this helpful, and we will see you soon in Italy. Arrivederci!